A dull, throbbing ache pulsed in my skull, dragging me out of unconsciousness. My throat was dry, raw, like I had been screaming for hours, though I had no memory of doing so. My limbs felt stiff, unnaturally tense. Then, panic gripped me. A crushing weight tightened around my chest. I tried to move my arms. Nothing. My legs. Just as restrained. My breathing grew shallow, erratic, and the pounding of my heartbeat filled my ears. As my vision adjusted to the dim, amber glow of the bedside lamp, I saw them. My wife, Lauren, was lying across our bed, the bed we had shared for the last 10 years. But she wasn't alone. A figure hovered over her, moving in a way that made my stomach twist. His bare back was slick with sweat. Tyler. My childhood best friend. My closest confidant. The man I had once trusted with everything. For a moment, I thought this had to be a nightmare, a cruel illusion conjured by exhaustion. But the scent of perfume and sweat in the air, the faint creak of the mattress, and the soft, breathy sounds slipping from her lips told me otherwise. This was real. A strangled noise built in my throat, but something stopped it. That's when I felt it, a thick strip of tape pressed tightly over my mouth. I was gagged. My voice, my anger, my disbelief, was silenced. Instinct took over, and I jerked against whatever was holding me down. The rough texture of rope burned against my skin as I struggled, the knots digging deeper into my wrists. But it was no use. I was completely trapped. Then, as if sensing my movement, Tyler's head turned. His gaze locked onto mine. And slowly, deliberately, a smirk spread across his face. "Oh," he chuckled, his tone filled with amusement. "Look who finally woke up." Ice shot through my veins. Lauren didn't react. She didn't gasp in shock or scramble to cover herself. Instead, she barely tilted her head toward me, her expression devoid of guilt, of shame. "Guess he gets to see it happen," she murmured, her voice unsettlingly calm, as if my presence didn't matter at all. My mind reeled. This couldn't be happening. Not my wife. Not my best friend. Not in my home. And yet, they had done this to me. They had tied me up. Left me here. Forced me to watch. The betrayal burned through me like acid, but beneath the anger, beneath the pain, another thought clawed its way to the surface. Why? Why would they do this? This wasn't some careless mistake, some moment of weakness. No, this was intentional. They wanted me to see. Tyler exhaled, running a hand through his damp hair, still grinning like he had just won some twisted game. "You should see your face, man," he said, his tone light, almost teasing. "Priceless." I fought against the restraints again, my muscles screaming in protest. My breath came in short, ragged bursts. I didn't care if the ropes cut into my skin, I just needed to get loose. Tyler sighed and swung his legs off the bed, stretching as if this was just another casual morning. "You're not going anywhere." He reached for something on the nightstand, and a sharp spike of fear shot through me. What was that? Then, I saw it, a flashlight. The same heavy metal one I kept by the bed for emergencies. Tyler's smirk widened as he rolled it in his hands, inspecting it, considering something. And then, slowly, deliberately, he stood up. He loomed over me, gripping the flashlight firmly. And in that moment, as his shadow stretched across the room, I realized one terrible truth. This wasn't just about betrayal. They weren't just humiliating me. They were trying to break me. "You know," he mused, tilting his head, "I always thought you'd put up more of a fight." He smirked, eyes flickering with amusement. "Guess you're not as tough as you made yourself out to be." My jaw clenched so tight my teeth ached. Every nerve in my body screamed at me to move, to lunge at him, to wipe that smug look off his face. But I couldn't. Not yet. My eyes darted past him, scanning the room. The nightstand. The bookshelf. The dresser. None of it useful. But then, my fingers twitched against something rough. The bedpost. The wood had splintered over time, worn down from years of restless sleep. It wasn't much, but it was something. I just had to be careful. Slow. Tyler sighed dramatically, stretching his arms. "You know what I love about this?" He gestured around the room. "The power shift. You used to walk around like you had everything under control. Your business. Your wife. Your perfect little life. His voice dropped, a mocking whisper. But look at you now. I focused on the ropes, rubbing them against the jagged edge. The fibers were tough, but I could feel them fraying, weakening. My fingers burned from the effort, but I didn't stop. Tyler shook his head, almost amused. And the best part? She chose me. He grinned, glancing over his shoulder at Lauren, who was still sitting on the bed, watching everything unfold without a trace of remorse. She wanted this. I refused to look at her. If I did, I might break. Sweat trickled down my back as I kept working the rope. It was giving, just a little. Not yet. Tyler stretched again, exhaling lazily. Maybe I should untie you, he mused. Let you get a closer look at what a real man looks like. The rope gave a little more. But Tyler wasn't done. He leaned in, his voice barely above a whisper. You were never enough, Michael. Never. And that was it. A sharp snap. The rope loosened. Tyler didn't notice. My fingers flew to my mouth, yanking the tape free. The sharp sting barely registered. My breath came in quick gasps as I surged forward, ripping my legs from the remaining restraints. Tyler's smirk vanished. What the? I didn't let him finish. My hand shot out, grabbing the first solid thing I could reach, the heavy metal candle holder from the nightstand. I swung. The impact sent a dull shockwave through my arm as the metal connected with the side of his head. His expression twisted from arrogance to shock as he stumbled backward, crashing into the dresser. Silence. Then a groan. Tyler slumped to the floor, dazed but not out. I didn't wait. I pushed to my feet, every muscle screaming in protest. My body felt like it had been through a war, but I wasn't staying here a second longer. The door. My way out. A scream. Lauren. I didn't care. She shrieked, scrambling from the bed, but I was already moving. I had nothing left to say to her. My bare feet pounded against the wooden floor as I bolted down the hallway. My heart thundered, not with fear, but with clarity. I wasn't a victim. I was free. The night air hit me like a shock to the system as I stumbled outside, my breath ragged. The cool wind carried a sharp bite, but I barely felt it. My head was still spinning, my hands trembling as adrenaline coursed through my veins. I had escaped. But I wasn't safe. Not yet. I forced myself to keep moving, my feet hitting the pavement in uneven strides. I had no plan, no destination, just the primal instinct to get as far away from that house as possible. From them. From everything that had just shattered my life into pieces. Lauren's voice still echoed in my head, that casual, dismissive tone, as if my presence hadn't mattered at all. And Tyler. I clenched my fists, my knuckles raw from where I had gripped the candle holder. The memory of the impact, the stunned look on his face before he crumpled, flashed through my mind. I had wanted to do more. But I wasn't that kind of person. Or at least, I hadn't been. I didn't stop moving until I reached my truck. My hands fumbled with the keys as I yanked open the door and collapsed into the driver's seat. My chest rose and fell in sharp, uneven breaths. The silence in the truck was deafening. For the first time since I woke up, I let myself think. The betrayal wasn't just some cheap affair. It was deeper than that. Planned. They had wanted to humiliate me. They had tied me up, forced me to witness everything, made a joke out of me. And for what? For power? For the thrill of seeing me broken? I gritted my teeth, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my fingers ached. I could still feel the rough bite of the ropes around my wrists, the sting of the tape against my mouth. They thought they had taken everything from me. They thought I was weak. But they had no idea who they had just messed with. I started the engine, the low rumble breaking the stillness of the night. The headlights cut through the darkness as I pulled onto the road, my mind already shifting. This wasn't over. I wasn't going to let them walk away from this like nothing happened. If they wanted a game, I was going to play. And I was going to win. The city lights blurred past as I drove, my grip still tight on the wheel. My mind raced, replaying every moment of the past few hours in a loop I couldn't shut off. The humiliation, the rage, the cold realization that the life I thought I had was nothing more than a lie. Lauren and Tyler had gone out of their way to break me, to turn me into a joke. But they had made a mistake. They hadn't finished the job. I wasn't broken. I was just getting started. I pulled into the parking lot of my construction company, the business I had built from the ground up. The one Tyler had always been jealous of, though he never admitted it outright. He had played the role of the supportive friend, always acting like he had my back, but now I could see it for what it was. He had never been on my side. Stepping into my dimly lit office, I shut the door behind me and took a deep breath. My hands were still shaking, but my mind was clearer than it had been in hours. If I was going to strike back, I needed information. Not just any information, the kind that would burn their lives to the ground. I flipped open my laptop, my fingers flying over the keyboard. Years ago, back when Tyler and I had actually been friends, we had shared cloud storage for work projects. He had probably forgotten about it. I never had. Within minutes, I was in. And what I found was worse than I imagined. Tyler had never been just some overconfident personal trainer. He had built his own gym, one that catered to high-end clients, people who trusted him with their fitness, their routines, even their secrets. And Tyler had kept records. Private training sessions with married women. Compromising photos. Explicit conversations. Promises of secrecy. But the real goldmine, the financial records. Large cash transactions. Suspicious withdrawals. Vague consultation fees that didn't add up. Laundering. Bribery. Whatever it wasn't legal. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly. I had enough to ruin him. But I wasn't going to stop there. I clicked over to my wife's phone records, sinking into the old backup drive. My stomach tightened as messages loaded on the screen. Tyler hadn't been the first. Not by a long shot. Different names. Different hotels. Different nights. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't one moment of weakness. This was who she was. Whatever love I had left for Lauren. It died in that moment. She had spent years building a perfect image, polished, respected, admired by her colleagues. But that image was just as fake as our marriage. And I was about to shatter it. I opened a new email account under an anonymous name and attached the most damning files from Tyler's private collection. Then, I drafted a message to some of his most high-profile clients. You trust your trainer. You invite him into your personal space. But what if that trust was misplaced? What if the sessions you believed were private weren't? Attached, you will find evidence proving that your trust has been violated. This is not blackmail. This is not a threat. This is simply a warning. Do what you will with this information. Consider it a friendly tip. I clicked send. Then, I scheduled the files to auto-upload to an anonymous forum. By morning, it would be everywhere. Tyler wouldn't even see it coming. And this was only the beginning. The fallout started earlier than I expected. I had been watching. Not in person, of course. I wasn't going to set foot anywhere near that gym. But I had my ways. My email had been sent, the files uploaded, and all I had to do was sit back and watch it unfold from a distance. Tyler had always carried himself like a king, like nothing could ever touch him. Every time he walked into his gym, he expected people to look at him with admiration, envy. But today, things were different. I watched the live security feed I had access to, the one I had set up years ago when Tyler had asked me to help him with some business security concerns. He had forgotten I still had access. As soon as he walked through the doors, I could see it, the way people shifted, the way conversations hushed. He hadn't even realized it yet. His receptionist barely glanced at him when he walked past. Normally, she was all smiles, hoping for his attention. Today, she looked like she couldn't get away from him fast enough. And then there was Mark Henderson. Mark was standing near the weight racks, his posture stiff, his phone in hand. I knew what he was looking at. Everyone did by now. Tyler, clueless, walked toward him, that same arrogant grin plastered on his face. I turned up the volume on the feed, just enough to hear their conversation. Hey, Mark. You need a session today. Mark didn't answer. He just tapped his phone screen and turned it toward Tyler. I already knew what was playing. One of the videos. The one where Tyler had been caught on camera with Mark's wife. Tyler's entire body went rigid. What the? Where did you get that? Mark's jaw was clenched tight. You have exactly 1 minute to explain. Tyler stammered something, but I could barely hear it. His confidence was cracking, his voice uneven. Mark took a step forward. I had expected him to make a scene, but I didn't think he'd actually do what he did next. His fist flew before Tyler could react. A solid punch landed square on Tyler's jaw, sending him stumbling backward into a row of dumbbells. A few gasps echoed in the gym, and then, laughter. People were laughing. Not out of shock. Not out of discomfort. But because they wanted this. Tyler was hated more than I had even realized. He blinked rapidly, trying to shake off the daze. He looked around, but nobody stepped in to help him. They just watched. Mark didn't even wait for a response. That was just the beginning, he said coldly, then turned and walked out. Tyler sat there for a moment, rubbing his jaw, but the real pain was only just beginning. Because the moment Mark left, his phone started blowing up. He scrambled to unlock it, scrolling through what must have been dozens, no, hundreds, of messages. Angry husbands. Furious girlfriends. Clients canceling their memberships. And then he made the connection. I saw it happen in real time, the exact moment when realization hit him. His fingers stopped moving. His expression hardened. His jaw clenched. He knew who had done this. He shoved his phone into his pocket and stormed toward his office, slamming the door behind him. That's when I knew I had won. I wasn't going to let her walk away so easily. After everything she had done, after the humiliation, the betrayal, the disrespect, Lauren had the audacity to think she could just stay? That she could simply wait it out and I'd eventually come crawling back, willing to talk things through? Not a chance. So I made sure she understood exactly where she stood. I drove back to the house. Not to talk, not to argue, but to end this completely. When I pushed open the front door, I found her in the kitchen, sitting at the counter, nursing a cup of coffee like it was just another morning. Like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't been tied up in that very bedroom, forced to watch as she threw away everything we built. She looked up when she heard me. And for the first time, I saw something in her eyes I had never seen before. Fear. She set the mug down carefully, forcing a small, nervous smile. Michael. I held up a hand. Don't. Her mouth clamped shut. I walked past her, moving through the house, picking up everything that wasn't hers to keep. My watch, my grandfather's old lighter, my important documents. All the little things that mattered, things she had no right to claim anymore. She watched me in silence, probably trying to figure out what to say. How to spin this. When I was done, I turned back to her. You have until midnight to be gone, I said flatly. Her lips parted slightly, as if she had expected something else. Maybe a fight. Maybe a conversation. Anything but this. She shook her head, standing up slowly. Michael, You think I care? I cut her off, my voice sharper than I intended. After everything, do you actually think I want to hear whatever excuse you've come up with? She flinched. I took a step forward, lowering my voice, making sure she felt every word. I saw the messages, Lauren. All of them. Every single time you did this. Every time you smiled in my face and told me you loved me, while sneaking off behind my back. She sucked in a breath, her hands gripping the counter. That's not. It's exactly what it looks like, I snapped. So don't insult me by pretending it isn't. Her throat bobbed as she swallowed, her confidence crumbling. Good. I pulled my phone from my pocket, tapping the screen a few times before turning it toward her. She froze when she saw it. A single email. An anonymous message. Sent directly to her boss, her colleagues, her family, all neatly compiled in a contact list. The subject line, The Truth About Lauren. I let the silence stretch, let her mind spiral with the possibilities of what might be inside that email. I never planned on actually sending it, at least, not unless she pushed me. But she didn't know that. You really think you're walking away from this without consequences? I asked. You don't get to just sit here, drinking your coffee, waiting for me to get over it. Her fingers dug into the counter so tightly that her knuckles turned white. You're leaving, I said again, tucking my phone back into my pocket. Tonight. I don't care where you go. I don't care who helps you. But if you're still here after midnight. I let the implication hang in the air. Her breathing was shaky now. She knew I meant it. I didn't need to raise my voice. I didn't need threats. The certainty in my tone was enough. For the first time, she truly understood. She had lost. I grabbed my keys and turned toward the door, not waiting for her response. I didn't need to hear it. She had her warning. I parked down the street, far enough to stay unseen but close enough to watch. And, sure enough, she left. The front door creaked open, and there she was, dragging a single suitcase behind her. She looked small. Not the woman I had once married. Not the one who had walked around with unshakable confidence, so sure that she could do whatever she wanted without consequences. That version of Lauren was gone. She stepped onto the porch, hesitating at the top step. She pulled out her phone, staring at the screen as if waiting for something. For someone. Maybe she was hoping Tyler would come for her. Maybe she was waiting for some miracle that would fix this mess. But no one was coming. I watched her fingers move across her phone's screen. A few seconds later, my phone buzzed on the console. Lauren, one new message. Michael, please talk to me. I need you. I exhaled through my nose, shaking my head. Need. She needed me when it was convenient. When I was the safe option. The fallback. Another buzz. Lauren, one new message. Please. I don't have anywhere to go. A part of me almost laughed. She had spent years sneaking around behind my back, acting like she was untouchable. Now, suddenly, she wanted my help? I hovered my thumb over the screen, debating whether to answer. But no. She didn't deserve even that. I deleted the messages without opening them. Lauren sighed heavily, rubbing her forehead. She hesitated, then typed something else. But when nothing came back, she tucked her phone away. That's when I saw it. For the first time, she looked lost. Like she didn't know what to do next. She pulled her suitcase down the steps, the wheels scraping loudly against the pavement. The sound was grating in the quiet of the night, but I didn't look away. I wasn't sure how long I sat there. Only that time stretched, slowed by the weight of finality. This was it. There would be no second chances. No rekindling of the past. No possibility of forgiveness. She had made her choices. Now, she had to live with them. I inhaled deeply, then started the car. The low rumble of the engine cut through the silence, breaking the last fragile thread that tied me to my past. I didn't look back. Because, for the first time in a long time, I was free. Thank you for visiting my YouTube channel. Your support, likes, and comments truly inspire me to create even more engaging content. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. You're a part of this amazing community, and I'm thrilled to share my stories with you. See you in the next video on YouTube.